In the early hours of October 7th, Hamas militants fired up to 7,000 rockets, launched small boats and landed across Israel's beaches, firing indiscriminately. They used hang gliders and pickup trucks to cross into towns, blowing up parts of Israel's highly fortified fence. They also captured a police station and drove back to Gaza, taking many Israeli soldiers and civilians hostage. Israeli forces responded with a ferocious air and artillery assault on Gaza. They targeted key military and command positions of Hamas. For 2 years leading up to this conflict, however, Israel had been grappling with the rise of violence not in Gaza, but the West Bank. You are watching an abridged version of a column by Col Rajeev Agarwal published on IndiaToday.in on 9th October 2023. Unlike Gaza, which Hamas started governing from 2007 and became the focus of conflict, West Bank had relatively been an island of peace. But that was true only 2 years back. Since that year, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, or the PIJ, started taking the fight against Israel from across the West Bank. In August 2022, Israeli forces arrested Bassam al-Sadi, the head of the PIJ in the West Bank, and his close aide Ashraf al-Jada from Jenin. On January 26, 2023, Israeli forces killed 7 gunmen and 2 civilians in Jenin. On July 25th, 3 Palestinians were killed by Israeli troops in Nablus, West Bank. The rather unprovoked attacks on Palestinian worshippers at the Al-Aqsa Mosque twice in the first week of April 2023 provoked various armed groups in the West Bank, Gaza Strip and Syria and drew sharp criticism from the Arab countries in the region. Then, in July, Israeli forces raided Jenin camp in the West Bank. This was the fiercest and largest military operation comprising land as well as air forces, including drones and armed helicopters, into the West Bank in over 2 decades. More recently, on September 17th, Israeli settlers forced themselves into the mosque complex for prayers while the forces attacked Palestinian worshippers at Bab as-Silsila, one of the main entrances to the Al-Aqsa mosque compound. Al-Aqsa in East Jerusalem, which Israel captured in the 1967 Six-Day War, hosts Islam's third holiest site, the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock, a 7th century structure believed to be the spot from where the Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven. Saudi Arabia, the UAE and Egypt immediately condemned the storming of the mosque. Saudi Arabia's foreign ministry called the Israeli actions a blatant violation of all international norms and conventions and a provocation to the feelings of Muslims across the world. Despite this, on October 4th, Israeli Jews again entered the mosque complex while the Palestinian worshippers were held off by the Israeli forces. All these led to the buildup of rage within the Palestinian community. In fact, Hamas military commander Mohammed Daif coined the ongoing Hamas operation as Operation Al-Aqsa Deluge in retaliation for Israel's desecration of the mosque on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. While all this was unfolding, Saudi Arabia and Israel were inching closer to a historic deal being negotiated by the US. There was talk of Saudi Arabia getting ironclad security guarantees from the US as well as a nuclear program. Israel would be asked to offer assurances to the Palestinian groups, but there would be no clear outcome on the two-state solution. If Saudi Arabia and Israel were to establish formal diplomatic relations without a permanent solution to the establishment of a viable and independent Palestine, it would deal a death blow to the struggle of over 75 years by the Palestinians. Meanwhile, there was also Iran. The Saudi-Iran peace deal in March 2023 has given a fresh lease of life to Iran in the region. Another boost to Iran was the prisoner exchange with the US on September 18th, mediated by Qatar, wherein 5 American prisoners were released by Iran in exchange for $6 billion. Also, a US defense report from the first week of October said Iran was not pursuing a nuclear weapons program at the time, but had the capacity to produce enough fissile material for a nuclear device in less than 2 weeks. All this should have raised hackles in Israel. If Iran no longer remained enemy number 1 for the Arab world and the rest, how will Israel then find support for its anti-Iran crusade in the region? Prime Minister Netanyahu too has to take a major share of the blame for this war. His continued provocations, despite calls for restraint from the US as well as Arab countries, did not make any impression on him. His policy of continually increasing settlements for Israeli citizens in the West Bank was also a point of conflict. On June 26, 2023, the Israeli Defense Ministry Planning Committee approved more than 5,000 new housing units in the West Bank. The US was critical of it, and its State Department spokesperson expressed concern. Surrounded by hostile neighbors, Israel could not have afforded to miss all the red flags. How could Hamas in Gaza be let off while the attention was diverted to the PIJ in the West Bank? Hamas used the opportunity to muster up weapons and resources. Palestinian worshippers in Al-Aqsa Mosque should not have been so blatantly attacked, that too during the period of Ramzan. The bigger question of brotherhood among the Muslims should have also been taken into equation. Israel, with its military superiority, will eventually prevail. The question is, at what cost? Some analysts are calling this attack Israel's 9/11, while others are calling it 26/11. Whatever it might be, it has changed the landscape of Israel's security forever. It has also put to rest the question of a viable two-state solution, at least for the next few decades to come. Hamas would have calculated the cost of the attack and the near obliteration that Israel's counteroffensive would result in. But that must have felt justified when seen in the context of the losing cause. For them, it was not about winning the war, but getting their voice heard.